please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
The big stories that we're tracking for you this evening. The government is readying a list of items for import duty hike, this in a bid to stem the fall in the rupee and keep the current account deficit under control. However, we learned that the CBIC, or the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs, is not in favor of an import duty hike on gold, steel and coal. Let's go across now to Timsy Jaipuria for more details. Timsy, this is a matter where clearly there are divisions within government. While the government has expressed its intent to look at import substitution, to also bring in import curbs, it's very clear that the CBIC, the Department of Revenue, want to be cautious and not adversely impact programs like Make in India, Digital India, etc.
Well, as you rightly said, government has geared up when it comes to battling out tough economic situation, especially to reduce the current account deficit burden by imposing import curbs. According to sources, CBIC is not in favor of any import duty hike, especially on coal, steel and gold. The Revenue Department has cautioned against any import duty hike, especially on goods that may hit Make in India, Digital India programs and any other such programs. And Finance Ministry has now asked key economic ministries to shortlist and identify commodities and goods for import curbs. The government is considering non-tariff barriers, minimum import price and import duty hike as possible import curb mechanisms. Sources have also indicated and added that Department of Revenue will be able to finalize the list of goods for import duty hike only after inputs have been received from the line ministries, post which a formal approval on the list of goods will be taken by the PMO and the Finance Minister's approval, which could be only by Friday. Meanwhile, talking to CNBC TV18, government officials also added that the final list will be prepared only after considering the impact that it will have on a domestic industry. An important observation also being that any hike on levies on gold would lead to more smuggling and unnecessary imports. Similarly, hiking duties on coal would have an adverse impact on power plants. Thus, officials say that import duty hike will be considered only on specified commodities for a limited period of time, with only one goal of keeping current account deficit under control. Government is also not in favor of any import duty hike on inputs for cell phones, as it feels that this would go against the Make in India and Digital India program. Already, Telecom Ministry and MeitY have expressed their concerns on this proposal. Thus, we now need to wait and watch and see what is the final call that the government takes and which are the commodities that make into the final list of possible import curbs. We'll keep you posted on it.
Thanks very much, Timsy, for breaking that story for us. In fact, earlier in the day, Sanjeev Sanyal, the principal economic advisor to the Finance Ministry, also said the government was looking at measures like import tariff hikes for the medium term. However, he also cautioned against the adverse impact of such measures on economic growth. As I pointed out, there are different opinions within government on whether or not to step ahead with import curbs. Listen in.
All options are being explored, and we will look at, including, if necessary, tariffs and other steps are being considered. But as I said, it will be done with a medium term in view. The danger in that is that in order to hit some sort of a target like this, you will, force fit all kinds of barriers, tariff or non-tariff, and will end up eventually hurting the economy in some fashion. So you have to be very, very careful when doing.
Well, that's the principal economic advisor, Sanjeev Sanyal, also cautioning about import duty curbs being brought in. Najib Shah, the former chairman of the Central Board of Excise and Customs, is here with us. Mr. Shah, appreciate you joining us here. As our colleague Timsy was just reporting, that a list is being drawn up, but the CBIC extremely cautious about hiking import duties on components for cell phone making, on items like gold, steel, coal, etc., though the government did specify that import curbs would be on non-essential commodities. What are the perils of moving ahead with import curbs, sir?
Obviously, striking the right balance, and that is an extremely difficult call. Gold, for instance, has been a favorite commodity which the government constantly looks at. It is at 10% now. Any further hike would only make it more attractive for smuggling. Electronic items, the whole range of them are covered under the WTO-ITA agreement, which means you have bound rates which you can't exceed, which you can't break through. You have a whole lot of commodities covered in the various FTAs already. So even if you were to increase rates of duties on these goods, they can come through the FTA route without any of these barriers working. So there are challenges, there are huge challenges in this. And obviously the line ministries will have to advise the CBIC as to which other items they would like the CBIC to impose taxes on, and only then you should go forward. The long-term repercussions, like the Chief Economic Advisor has mentioned, are going to be immense. So we need to strike the right balance.
Yes, you said that we need to strike a right balance, sir. But if I could talk to you specifically about electronic items, sir, because the finance minister in his statement said non-essential imports. The government is looking at hiking import duties on non-essential or import curbs on non-essential imports. Now, you know, the big sort of pitch has been made that, look, why is India importing so many iPhones and so on and so forth? And that is the easiest target to go after. Do you think that that would be the best way forward?
I suppose so, but one would expect the Department of Telecom, the IT ministries, the DT, to come to us and come to the CBIC and specifically recommend that, because these are rates of duties which have all been firmed up over a period of time in consultation with these line ministries. And as you're aware, again, there are commitments which we have made over a period of time that will keep reducing these rates of duty. So we need to work cautiously and on the advice of the line ministries concerned.
You know, Mr. Shah, there's also a panel headed by the Cabinet Secretary that's been set up to look at a couple of sectors from a perspective of import substitution. Now, I would imagine that this or these measures will have to be in sync with the measures that this other panel recommends as well. So there will have to be that alignment between these two decisions also. But in the short term, is this really going to make any material difference? You know, import substitution is something that will play out in the long term. So if you are looking at a current account problem, then will price action have to be the first resort?
I can't agree with you more. And the multiplicity of committees would mean, obviously, some difference in commodities itself, which are going to be recommended. So the CBIC, I'm sure, will examine this with very intently and then come to a conclusion. And again, I keep harping on this FTA bit because remember, almost all the lines are covered under one FTA or another. So what really has been the experience of the government has been that when you impose any hike in duties, the goods start coming through the FTA route. So they very easily go past the barrier which we create. So I don't know how it will work out, but yes, I suppose there is the need for action to be taken, and that action will be taken after due deliberation and caution, and it will be a short-term measure only.
When you say short term, sir, you know, typically in your experience previously, for instance, what would short term quantify as?
I think for steel, for instance, there were some protective measures which are taken in the form of minimum import prices and safeguard duties, etc. Now, those are all spread over a period of 6 months to 1 year. And even that was after a great deal of thought, deliberation and discussion with the industry and the line ministries. So I think anything between 6 months to 1 year, we are now looking at as uppermost. Beyond that, I don't think we should be really looking at any of these. And in case they kick in, they should have an impact in the next month or two itself, these measures.
Okay, let me then talk to you about exports, because one part of the government's intent is to bring in import curbs and the other is to incentivize exports. What is it that you believe could be the levers they could exercise on the export front immediately?
The exporters have constantly been talking of their refunds being held up. I guess we should ensure that they are released without any further delay. And the CBIC, I'm aware of the fact, is been taking a lot of steps. Remember, exports ultimately are not so much about the incentives you can give from here, as much as the markets which are available in the world economy as such. And we need to make our goods competitive because price is a very important factor for these exports to enter those markets. So I think all the export promotion schemes are already in place. They are, in my opinion, fairly generous. There's drawbacks. There is the scheme for merchant exports. There's a scheme for services exports. They are giving substantial amount of money. What we should ensure is that money reaches the exporters without any loss of time. And another issue which constantly comes to them is interest subvention. So that is something which the government can look at, which is what was done also in 2008-9 when we had a similar challenge, and exporters are given interest subvention, which helped them substantially.
Right. So that is what we're given to understand, is that there could be some more incentives provided to exporters, and that is a story that we broke right here on CNBC TV 18. And Najib Shah, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for joining us, the former chairman of the CBEC, Najib Shah, there on the CNBC TV 18 exclusive. It's time now for us to head into a break, but don't go anywhere. There's a lot more coming up.